Through Facebook, just like everyone else, the woman who sang Secret Love had secrets of her own: a manager who kept her family away, a $22 million betrayal, and a hidden life behind high walls in Carmel. Now Ryan breaks his silence about the grandmother America loved, but never really knew. Doris Day was born as Doris Mary Ann Koff on April 3, 1922 in Cincinnati, Ohio. She grew up in a working-class neighborhood with her parents, William, a music teacher, and Alma, a homemaker. Doris had two older brothers, but one, Richard, sadly died before she was born. This loss shaped her strong and determined personality. When she was still a child, her parents divorced, which was unusual and shocking at the time. Doris was raised mostly by her mother, and they faced many challenges during the Great Depression. But even as a young girl, Doris stood out for her spirited nature. At just 12 years old, she won a contest by standing on her hands for over 3 hours, earning free dance lessons. This showed the determination that would define her entire life. Doris loved dancing and dreamed of becoming a professional dancer, but when she was 14, her life took a heartbreaking turn just before a trip to Hollywood that could have changed her life. She was in a terrible car accident. A train hit the car she was in, and her leg was shattered. It was so bad the doctors thought they might have to amputate for over a year. Doris couldn't walk and had to go through many painful surgeries. During this time, she turned to singing to help her cope. She listened to the radio and sang "Belong" to her favorite artist, Ella Fitzgerald. Her mother noticed her talent and found her a singing teacher named Grace Rain. Grace said Doris was the most talented student she had ever taught. At just 15, Doris started singing professionally. Her first job was at a small Chinese restaurant where she earned $5 a night. It wasn't much, but it was a start. One night, while singing at a local nightclub, she caught the attention of a band leader named Barney Rapp. He had been looking for a female singer for a long time, and when he heard Doris, he knew she was the one. But there was a problem. Doris was too young to work in places that served alcohol. To solve this, she lied about her age and said she was 18. She worried people would find out, but she didn't want to miss the chance to perform. In 1939, when Doris was 17, she changed her name. Barney Rapp thought her last name Kappelhoff was too hard to say and too long for a stage name. After hearing Doris sing the song Day After Day, he suggested the name Doris Day. At first, Doris didn't like it. She thought it sounded too flashy, but eventually she got used to it, and the name stuck. Little did she know Doris Day would become one of the most famous names in Hollywood. Doris Day's life changed forever when she joined Les Brown's band on March 15, 1940, at just 18 years old. But it almost didn't happen. Doris was so scared before her audition that she couldn't stop shaking and even got sick backstage. Les Brown himself had to encourage her, reminding her of the talent he'd heard on the radio. With his support, she went on stage and sang "Embraceable You." The band was stunned, and Doris got the job. Her time with the band wasn't easy, though. On Valentine's Day in 1941, while traveling with the group, Doris found out that her brother Paul had died in a car accident. Even though she was heartbroken, she chose to perform that night. Her emotional singing brought the audience to tears. This ability to pour her feelings into her music would make her stand out for the rest of her career. The biggest moment with Les Brown's band came in 1945, when they recorded "Sentimental Journey." Les didn't even like the song at first and called it too old-fashioned. But Doris believed in it so much that she told him she'd quit if they didn't record it. Finally, he gave in, and the song became a huge success. It sold over 1 million copies in its first year and became the theme song for soldiers returning home from World War II. Fun fact: Doris was sick with a cold when she recorded it, which gave her voice a husky, emotional sound that became her signature. In 1947, Doris decided to try a solo career. It wasn't easy at first. When she signed with Columbia Records on September 1st, there was a lot of pressure on her. She was one of the first female artists to get a big contract like that, a 7-year deal worth $1 million. But even with this big opportunity, things didn't start smoothly. At her first recording session, she found the songs picked for her were boring and outdated. Doris refused to sing them. After arguing with the studio, she was finally allowed to choose her own songs. That decision led to her recording "It's Magic," which became a massive hit. It sold over 2 million copies and even got her an Oscar nomination. What made it even more special was that Doris recorded "It's Magic" in just one take. Everyone in the studio was amazed. The song was so popular that Columbia Records couldn't keep up with demand. They had to stop making other records just to produce more copies of Doris's hit. Doris Day's story with Secret Love is full of surprises. In 1953, the song was written for her movie Calamity Jane, but she didn't like it at all. She thought the words were too mushy and refused to sing it. This put the filmmakers in a tough spot. The director, David Butler, decided to visit her late at night. He brought a bottle of champagne and a piano player, pleading with her to give the song a chance. After a lot of convincing, she finally agreed. The day of the recording wasn't smooth either. Doris had been up all night fighting with her husband Marty Melcher and came to the studio upset and crying. Even so, she insisted on recording the song. She sang it in one single take, pouring all her emotions into the performance. Everyone in the studio was stunned. The orchestra members were in tears, and the sound engineer couldn't even speak. The recording was so powerful that Columbia Records decided to release it just as it was. No changes, no edits, nothing. When the song was released, it became a massive hit. Secret Love stayed at #1 on the Billboard charts for 19 weeks and sold over 4 million copies worldwide. It even won an Oscar for Best Original Song, making Doris the first person to act in a movie and sing an Oscar-winning song. But despite the fame, Doris was nervous about performing it live. She refused to sing it at the Oscars, saying she had terrible stage fright. This upset people in Hollywood, and some started calling her difficult to work with, even though it wasn't true. Years later, Secret Love found new meaning. Its lyrics about hidden love touched the hearts of people in the LGBTQ+ community during the 1960s and 1970s who saw it as an anthem for their struggles. When Doris heard about this much later, she was deeply moved. She openly supported the community, which was a big deal for a star from her era. Doris Day's Hollywood story began with a twist of fate. One night at a party, two famous songwriters, Jewel Stein and Sammy K.H., heard her sing. They were so impressed they suggested she try acting. The timing was perfect. Betty Hutton, the lead in Romance on the High Seas 1948, had dropped out because she was pregnant. Doris was 25 and had never acted before. She was nervous, but gave it a try. The director, Michael Curtis, was blown away. He called her the most everything girl he'd ever seen and gave her the part. Her performance in the movie made her a star. Despite being new to acting, Doris looked so natural on screen that the people thought she had been doing it for years. The film's success landed her a long-term contract with Warner Brothers, starting her incredible Hollywood career in the 1950s. Doris became one of the biggest stars in musicals. One of her most famous films was Calamity Jane, 1953. She played a wild and adventurous frontierswoman, a big change from her usual sweet and innocent roles. Doris gave her all to the role, even doing dangerous stunts herself, like jumping onto a moving stagecoach. She got hurt breaking a rib, but her hard work paid off. The movie made over $3.7 million and is still loved today. Another big success came with The Pajama Game, 1957, a fun musical about workers in a pajama factory. The movie was based on a Broadway show, and most of the cast stayed the same except for Doris. Her song Hey There was another chart topper, and her lively performance made the movie a hit. It earned $5 million at the box office and proved that Doris was one of the most popular stars of the time. Doris Day's career changed in 1955 with a movie called Love Me or Leave Me. Before this, she was known for happy musicals, but this movie was very different. She played Ruth Etting, a singer who dealt with an abusive manager and crime. The story was serious and emotional, showing a new side of Dee's talent. Her acting was so good that Ruth Etting herself said, "I never knew I was that good." The movie made over $4 million and got great reviews. Some people, like her co-star James Cagney, thought she should have been nominated for an Oscar. Making the movie wasn't easy. Some scenes about the abuse were too intense for the rules of that time, so they had to change them. Still, the movie showed everyone that Doris Day could do more than sing and smile. She could act in tough roles too. After this, Doris Day became one of the biggest stars in Hollywood in the late 1950s and early 1960s. She was a box office queen from 1960 to 1964. She was the most popular movie star in America, a record only Shirley Temple had before her. One of her biggest hits was Pillow Talk in 1959, her first movie with Rock Hudson. It cost $3 million to make, but earned over $18 million. Her chemistry with Hudson was amazing, and they made two more movies together, Lover Come Back in 1961 and Send Me No Flowers in 1964. All three were huge hits, and Pillow Talk even got Day her only Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Doris Day's movies made a lot of money, over $200 million by 1965. She became known as the most bankable actress in Hollywood. She was also one of the highest paid stars, earning $750,000 per film and getting a share of the profits. People loved her not just for her movies, but also for her style and songs. She was a true American icon, but being America's sweetheart wasn't always fun for Day. She later said it was hard to always live up to that perfect image. Even so, her influence on movies, music, and culture was huge. Doris Day's life took many surprising turns both on screen and off. She starred in her own sitcom, The Doris Day Show, from 1968 to 1973. At first, it was a family comedy set on a California ranch, but every season the story, setting, and characters changed. It was as if the show became something new every year. Fans didn't know what to expect, and this constant reinvention made it unique. The changes also reflected the rapidly shifting culture of the late 1960s and early 1970s. After the show ended, Doris decided to leave acting and focus on something she truly loved, helping animals. Her passion started when she was a child after her dog Tiny died in a tragic accident. That loss stayed with her and inspired her to protect animals for the rest of her life. Even during her career, Doris showed her love for animals. While filming The Man Who Knew Too Much in Morocco, she was horrified by the poor treatment of animals on the set. She refused to keep working until the animals were cared for. Her actions led to the creation of a feeding station for the local animals, showing how much she cared and how much her voice mattered. In 1978, Doris started the Doris Day Pet Foundation, which later became the Doris Day Animal Foundation. At first it focused on rescuing animals locally. Doris even took care of many animals in her own home. Over time, the foundation grew. It started working on bigger problems like stopping animal overpopulation. In 1995, Doris created World Spay Day to encourage people to spay and neuter their pets. The event spread to over 70 countries, helping millions of animals. Doris also worked to change laws to protect animals, using her fame to make a difference. Even though Doris left Hollywood, she surprised everyone in 2011 with a new album called My Heart. At 89 years old, she released songs that had been recorded in the 1980s, many of them written by her late son Terry Mellor. The album was very personal and full of emotion. One song, Happy Endings, even featured Terry's voice alongside Doris's. Fans loved the album, and it became a hit. It reached number 9 on the UK albums chart, making Doris the oldest artist to have a top 10 album with new material in the US. It marked her first appearance on the Billboard charts in almost 50 years. Even after the album's success, Doris stayed out of the spotlight. She preferred to spend her time working on animal welfare. Her last public message came in 2019. When she turned 97, she thanked her fans for their support and reminded them to keep helping animals through her foundation. Doris Day's life took a difficult turn at just 17 when she married Al Jordan, a 23-year-old trombonist. Her mother had warned her against the marriage, but Day was determined. Sadly, her mother's fears came true right after their wedding in April 1941. The abuse started on their very first day, as husband and wife Jordan saw Day kiss a fellow musician on the cheek as a thank you for a gift. Furious, he dragged her out of the theater, through the streets of New York, and back to their hotel room, where he beat her mercilessly. The violence didn't stop there. Jordan was controlling and jealous, constantly accusing Day of being unfaithful. He called her terrible names and even slapped her in public. When he saw her picture on a magazine cover. Things got worse when Day became pregnant. Jordan tried to force her to have an illegal abortion, and when she refused, he beat her so badly that she nearly lost the baby. The worst moment came when she was 8 months pregnant. Jordan hid a gun in his car and drove Day to a secluded area, planning to kill her and their unborn child before taking his own life with her. Quick thinking, Day managed to calm him down and avoid tragedy, but the terror stayed with her forever. From that day on, she couldn't sit in the front seat of a car without feeling afraid. After her son Terry was born in February 1942, Day tried to hold the marriage together, hoping Jordan would change, but when he started hurting their baby, she knew she had to leave. It wasn't easy, but she found the courage to walk away and file for divorce. Sadly, this wasn't the last time Day would find herself in a relationship with an unstable man. Her second marriage to saxophonist George Weidler seemed like a fresh start. They met while performing in the same band, and their connection was instant. Day, now a young single mom, fell for his charm, and the two quickly married in 1946. After tying the knot, they moved to Hollywood, believing it would give them better opportunities. At first things seemed promising, but cracks started to show. Weidler wasn't ready to be stepfather and didn't hide his reluctance when it suggested that her mother and son move in with them. He also struggled with Day's growing success as her singing career began to take off. He became insecure and distant. Then, just 8 months after their wedding, he delivered a crushing blow. He wanted a divorce. His reason: he didn't want to be overshadowed by her rising fame, or known as Mr. Doris Day. Day was devastated. She had hoped this marriage would bring stability and happiness, but it ended almost as quickly as it began. After the divorce was finalized in 1949, she returned home to Cincinnati with her son, looking for comfort and time to heal. When she married Martin Melcher in 1951, she thought she had found happiness. Instead, he became her manager and secretly ruined her for 17 years. Mellor and his business partner Jerome Rosenthal stole her money and wasted it on bad deals. Doris trusted Mellor completely and never questioned what he was doing. When Mellor suddenly died in 1968, Doris discovered the terrible truth. Her entire fortune, worth what would be $150 million today, was gone. On top of that, she was $500,000 in debt. But that wasn't all. Muir had secretly signed her up for a CBS television show without asking her. Doris, who had been one of Hollywood's biggest movie stars, was now broke and forced into TV work. She didn't want. Doris sued Rosenthal to get back what was hers. In 1974, she won a $22 million settlement, but in the end she received only a small part of it after making deals with insurance companies. Her son later said she got far less than people thought. This betrayal was devastating. Doris had trusted Mellor completely, and he had lied to her for almost 2 decades. It broke her heart and made her step away from the spotlight. One of the hardest parts of Mel's betrayal was the TV show he had signed her up for. Doris had planned to retire after her last movie in 1968, but now she had no choice. She had to do the Doris Day Show to pay off the debt Muir left behind. She only found out about the show a few weeks before filming started and was horrified. Even worse, the $500,000 advance from CBS was already spent. But money troubles weren't the only challenges Doris faced. For most of her life, she struggled with anxiety and depression. Even at the height of her fame, she was battling panic attacks and fear. In 1952, while filming I'll See You in My Dreams, she had a breakdown. Her symptoms were so bad that she thought she was dying of heart disease. Instead of getting help, Doris turned to alcohol and tried to hide her pain. By the early 1950s, her mental health was at its worst. She avoided public events and turned down interviews. On the set of Young at Heart in 1954, she broke down in tears after an emotional scene. Co-star Frank Sinatra had to comfort her. Doris later said she felt like she was on the edge of a complete breakdown during this time. Shockingly, Doris didn't seek therapy until 1971, when she was almost 50 years old. For 4 years she worked with a therapist to deal with her lifelong anxiety and depression. She said it helped her finally find some peace. Doris Day had only one child, her son Terry Melcher, born on February 8. 1942. For several years she raised Terry alone, then in 1951 she married Martin Melcher. Martin adopted Terry and gave him his last name, but their home life wasn't always happy. Martin was often harsh and controlling, and Terry had to find his own way in the world. As Terry grew older, he started making a name for himself in music. By the 1960s, he was working as a producer at Columbia Records. He helped create huge hits like Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn 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 for the Birds. He also worked with Paul River and the Raiders, helping them produce several hit songs. Terry's talent didn't stop there. He later worked with the Beach Boys and even produced their hit song Cook in 1988, which became their first #1 song in 22 years. But Terry's life wasn't just about music. In 1968, something terrifying happened. Terry was living at a house in Los Angeles with his girlfriend Candace Bergen. This house on Cello Drive later became the site of the infamous Sharon Tate murders by Charles Manson's cult. Terry had met Manson through a mutual friend. Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson. Manson wanted Terry to help him get a record deal, but Terry decided not to. This rejection made Manson angry. A few months later, Terry moved out of the house not long after Manson's followers killed Sharon Tate and her friends there. Some people believe Terry might have been the target, but no one knows for sure. Ryan Meller, Doris Day's only grandson, shared a heartbreaking story just one day after her death on May 13, 2019. He revealed on Facebook that he had been estranged from his grandmother for 14 years. Even worse, he found out about her passing not from family, but through social media. Like millions of her fans, it was a sad and shocking revelation showing how deeply their family ties had been broken. The trouble began in 2004 after Ryan's father Terry Melcher passed away. Terry, Doris Day's only child, had died from melanoma at the age of 62. Not long after, Doris reached out to Ryan and invited him to dinner. It seemed like a chance to reconnect, especially since their relationship had been distant after Ryan's parents divorced in 1997, but things didn't go as planned. Before the dinner could happen, Doris's new business manager Bob Bashara stepped in. He called Ryan to a meeting at the Cypress in a hotel Doris co-owned in Carmel, California. Ryan says Bashara asked him, "Why do you want to see Doris?" Ryan was stunned and replied, "She's my grandmother." But instead of bringing them closer, Bashara told Ryan he wouldn't be allowed to see her. He even blamed the estrangement on Ryan's parents' divorce. That moment marked the start of a painful separation that would last until Doris's death. Ryan later admitted he regretted not doing more to reconnect. He said the fences and guards around Doris's home put in place by Bashara made it nearly impossible, but he still felt he should have tried harder. Over the years, Ryan moved on with his life, becoming a real estate agent in Carmel. Meanwhile, he claims Bashara made changes to Doris's Animal Welfare Foundation, firing the longtime board members and replacing them with his own family. The story took another turn when DA's publicist Charlie Cullen Walters responded to Melcher's claims. Walters, who worked with Doris since 2011, said they tried many times to reconnect with Ryan. One of these attempts was for Doris's 90th birthday in 2014, which could have been a perfect moment for the family to come together, but according to Walters, Ryan didn't respond. Walters explained that this estrangement might not have been all on Doris's side. He pointed out something interesting. Ryan's own website once had a message asking people not to contact him about celebrity or Hollywood matters. This made the situation even more complicated. On one hand, Ryan seemed to avoid the fame tide to his grandmother. On the other hand, he later talked about how he missed being connected to her. Walters's version of events suggests the story was more about misunderstandings than anyone intentionally pushing the other away. In her later years, Doris chose to step away from the public eye completely. After her third husband Martin Muir passed away in 1968, she became very private. By the 1990s, Doris was hardly seen in public. She lived on an 11-acre ranch in Carmel, California, with her animals, which became her biggest passion. She reportedly cared for as many as 30 dogs at one time, each with its own room. Her life revolved around them, and her ranch was her peaceful retreat. Doris rarely left her home and turned down many honors like the Kennedy Center Awards because she didn't like public events or traveling. Her last public appearance was in 1989 at the Golden Globes, and her final TV interview was in 1994. People in Carmel knew her as the friendly woman who cared for stray animals and lived a simple, quiet life. She even served meals on paper plates and had a washing machine in her bedroom. She created a separate kitchen just for her pets. Her love for them was that deep. After her son Terry Meller died in 2004, Doris became even more secluded. Her business manager Bob Bashara started handling most of her affairs. This caused tension with Ryan, who felt cut off from his grandmother. It added another layer to the story of Doris's later life, where privacy and family struggles collided.